So a little background info for anybody who's jumping in just now is that Edie and I were talking about acceptable versus unacceptable gym behavior. And I was saying that it all comes down to a lack of self-awareness. So I'm willing to cut people a little bit of slack, especially young people. I'm in my 40s now. And if I see somebody who's 20 years old, who's having a very loud conversation about intimate encounters or what else, how much money they make or how much they don't like poor people, all things that I've heard. I think, just this person is lacking in self-awareness. They're not aware of what they're putting out there and what people are receiving. And hopefully with time, they'll be a little bit more maturing as life occurs and as you become more aware of how you affect people around you. No, so I guess the point is this, that as much as you can learn about yourself in the gym via what you do and what you overcome, you can also learn through your behavior, like bad behaviors. So like if you push too hard and you hurt yourself, then maybe going too hard in life in other areas is not a good idea. If you offend people around you in the gym, you may learn that certain behaviors are not good or acceptable. You can learn a lot about yourself and about your life in the gym.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And like I always tell you, yes, in a perfect world, yes, we would always like people to be respectful, to be more mindful with their surroundings. But we know we don't live in a perfect world. We're always going to find people like that. And like I was telling Mark, we really should have a podcast on just things that grind my gears. And one of the things that grind my gears was trainers in the gym making the session about them. So a client pays for an hour. You would think that you would want that client to
be present for that client.
Yeah, to be present for that client. Now, to be fair to some of the trainers, some of the clients is either they accept it because they like it, or they feel sorry for the trainer, or they're thinking like, man, like, why is that trainer making it all about themselves and not saying anything? And eventually they fire that trainer. Who knows? But it just grinds my gears when the entire session is about that trainer the entire weekend. And I do the same thing, but I ask the client and it's a back and forth. It's not all about my grievances in the gym and this guy or whatever. And there's this specific trainer, it just always happens. And it's like, what the heck is going on? And the stuff they're doing with the client, is the client getting better strength-wise? I would beg to differ.
I'm going to have to ask you offline who the trainer is. I'm curious.
You've seen that trainer. Yeah.
So look, dude, I think it really...
It's a trainer. There's like 1,000 trainers in New York.
Dude, I think it really comes down to mindfulness. If you don't learn to be mindful, then you're not going to be mindful in your interactions. And without making it sound too preachy or whatever, it's definitely the kind of thing that I think occurs to you across more interactions as you get older. And as you become more aware of yourself and how you want to present yourself and what your values are. It certainly has been the case for me. I don't even think I would recognize myself from 20-something years old to however old I am now. So, when I see this kind of behavior, many times I'm just like, cool, you're young, or you're just not, if it's not a young thing, you're just not that aware of yourself yet, that you're not perceiving what you're putting out there to people.
What you're talking about is just some individual in the gym on his own, talking loud on the phone, boasting about whatever he's talking about. For me, it is about a one-on-one trainer client and stuff like that, and making it all about them. But yes, I totally get where you're coming from. And yes, in a perfect world, everybody will have some awareness. Everybody will be mindful about people around them. But we don't live in that world we all wish we lived in.
We do, but here's what I would say.
Yeah.
Here's my pushback on that. Here's what I think. How many people spend time in front of the mirror asking themselves what their values are? What are my values? What am I about, right? If you ask a lot of people on the spot, they would probably tell you favorable things about themselves. But I don't know, and many people I'm sure do, but I'm sure just as many people don't give thought to, well, if I say that I'm a respectful person and I'm good values, how did I act today? How did I act to people around me? So the guy that I mentioned to you before in the gym, who is very disruptive to other people, well, you couldn't say that you're a respectful person if you're throwing weights around, if you're talking about all these lewd things about who you had sex with or how much money you made. You're not really being respectful. And that's kind of a reflection on yourself. So without making this too philosophical, how you, and I tell my son this all the time, how you treat other people is a reflection of how you see yourself. Respect is about you, it's not about the other person. So again, this is what I would pause with in front of the mirror. Did I behave in a way today that lined up with my values? If not, maybe I need to reassess and recalibrate a few things. Now you're going to tell me that I suffer from idealism.
I'm going to say you suffer from idealism?
Yeah, you're going to say that I suffer from idealism. In an ideal world, this is how people should act and reflect or whatever. See, I know this guy. I've known him for a decade. That's how he rolls.
Yes, yes, yes. Idealism. Yeah. So realistically, nobody looks in the mirror to ask themselves, was I a good person today? Did I reflect on anything? Nobody does that. I don't do that. I'm just who I am. And a lot of people are who they are, and nobody reflects unless they are intentional with journaling.
I do it. I mean, I didn't do it 10 years ago, but it's something that I
Mhm.
definitely do now. At the end of the day, you reflect on, what did I do today? Was it good? Was it bad? Could I have been more productive? Did I fall short of my own standards? And based on that, without beating yourself up, because I don't think that's helpful either, you could just like reassess and think, how can I do better tomorrow? What could I do differently? When this pitfall comes again, if I lost my patience, if I was disrespectful, if I was whatever, how, when this same situation presents itself, can I conduct myself differently? And I can tell you, I feel like for me, it makes a world of difference in just being intentional with how I conduct myself.
Where did you come up with that? Did you read that in a book? You should be intentional at night, because I know there's
Man,
a lot of people preaching that kind of stuff. Not saying it's right or
I,
wrong, but yeah.
I couldn't even tell you because I feel like there's so many things that I love to read, and there's so many different things that I've read that there's just been like a general progression towards this. So, I've been talking to you about the Four Agreements. I talked to you about Bruce Lee's daughter's book, Shannon Lee's book, Be Like Water. There's a lot of different things just in the last year alone that I've read that just kind of, I would say, gently encourage mindfulness. Arnold Schwarzenegger's book that I read recently, Be Useful, right? The through line of the book is be a useful person to yourself, to other people. And as you reflect on these things, then you think, well, how can I be that kind of a person? That is aspirational. I would like to do that. How do I get there? And yeah, it's just this general progression towards being more mindful about your actions and what you do in the world with your everyday life.
Yeah, these things I always naturally just resorted to. Everything you're just talking about, just be useful in society. I've always thought of myself as being a servant to society and always making it about other people and not myself.
I think mindfulness is something you learn along the way. And I know I've said this to you in the past, but maturity past 18 is a choice. So if you decide to stop growing and you don't want to progress any further, you probably won't. But if you do, and life is kind of like an ongoing process, you're going to progress and become more mindful, more intentional as you go along. I do think, as pessimistic as I can be about some things, I am optimistic about people want the best for themselves and they will seek it out. So to our point about people being not mindful in the gym, I have hope that will not always be the case for them. And eventually they'll think, oh, maybe I'm talking so much about my relationships, or maybe I'm making it about me and I could make this a little bit more about the person in front of me.
Like I always tell you, people do certain things for a certain reason. We don't know what it is. Now, if I care about that person, then I tend to dig a little deeper into why that person is reacting a certain way. And I'm sure that person you're talking about, there's a reason why he's acting that way.
With him specifically, he's puffing his chest out. So when he's on the phone bragging about, whatever conquests or, however much money he's making, you're puffing your chest out at the other person, which signals to me that you still feel like that's the thing that you need to do. You still need to impress the person opposite from you. And again, if we're digging deep, well, how impressed are you with yourself if you've got to try to impress other people? Now, I know I'm psychologically we're digging in. It's like, 25-cent psychology, but truly like that's what I hear. I'm like, okay, if you're doing this amount of bragging and you're putting this much out there, you're trying to convince the other person opposite from you because you're not convinced of it yourself.
I think it's more you, to be honest, because he could convey that same message to the person on the phone without you hearing, but he wanted you or whoever else was in the gym to hear. So I think it was more towards you. He was trying to convince for whatever reason. Yeah. That's just my take on it.
I mean, well, if that were the case, there's definitely other people that'll be impressed by it. I'm just trying to do my thing to the best of my ability, and in the gym, out of the gym, respectful of everybody's space. That's it.
Yeah, we all want that. We all want that.
So what? I'm going to put myself out there real quick, actually, to everybody. To my point about mindfulness is learned, right? You learn to be more of a mindful and respectful person. When I first started at our old gym, over 10 years ago, I was a much younger guy and a much less mindful guy. Do you remember I used to leave my exercise equipment out? Agility ladders were laid out. Weight plates were left on the barbell. That is terrible gym etiquette. I didn't know better. And once it was pointed out to me, hey, Mark, this is kind of disruptive and you need to be more considerate of people around you. Oh, shoot, I'm so sorry. I will do better. And then the behavior stopped. So I do think as you progress, as people point things out to you, as you learn, you will do better. I once upon a time had douchey gym behavior by leaving plates on barbells and agility ladders just left out on the floor.
And it's always boggled my mind. I mean, at the time, I didn't judge you. I knew you were not a bad person. I just knew there was just some sort of psychological block why you do what you did. And you never grew up in a gym like me. You never grew up in that kind of environment. I grew up in that environment, so I just knew, put your weights back. You were in a corporate environment as opposed to me. So I knew you were not a bad person, and it's just not something you were used to. And you're just a forgetful person in general. So even then I knew that. And I knew that because you were leaving the weights out, but you were also forgetting your keys and your wallet. So obviously
I was
you
just
weren't doing
about
that.
to say that.
Yeah.
I was just
Obviously, you
about to
weren't
stop.
doing that, intentionally. So I knew that. So we just had to work through that, and then you became a little more mindful and intentional, and then you got better.
It was an ongoing thing. I was just about to mention it. It was like a joke with our team that, you know, we can find Marc's wallet. I would get photos. Hey, you left your wallet in the chair here. Hey, you left your wallet on the floor. I mean, it was endless. And, you know, again, I think it's indicative now of a mind state that is always on the go. It's always moving from one thing to the next. And when you do that, things are going to slip through the cracks. So if you're rushing with your clients from one thing to the next, you're going to leave some things behind you, especially if you're not actively mindful. You're going to leave your wallet behind, your keys behind. I mean, I got so many text messages. Hey, you found your keys. Like, just, yeah.
Yeah, and you remember when your then girlfriend, she got the AirTag for you?
When Sandra got the AirTag for me. Yeah.
She got the AirTag for you. So she knew there was a big problem there. And I was like, yeah, this dude has a serious problem. But yeah,
all right,
that's not because
story.
you're being an asshole or anything like that.
All right, funny story. This culminated one time. This was like the absolute worst of it. So we were at Rockefeller Center. That was where our gym was. And I was sitting downstairs at the train station waiting for the F train to come. So I get onto the train. I touch my pockets. All of a sudden, I realized that my wallet is in my pants. I look around. I left it on the bench. I'm like, oh my God. So the train goes. We go from, I guess, 47 50th to whatever's next, 50 something. I get out. I run all the way. I didn't even take the train back. I just ran back. I'm not even thinking. And of course, the wallet wasn't there anymore. And, you know, the message there is just, dude, you have to get better organized. Like, just be the kind of person, be the kind of person that kicks your tires before you leave, right? Before you get in the car. When you get up from the bench, instead of running into the train, hey, wallet, phone, keys. Okay, got everything? Then get in. Stop zipping all the time from one thing to the next. But that's my own journey about like mindfulness, just kind of slowing things down a little bit.
Well, to be fair to you, you're not the only person like that. That's just your personality. That's how your brain is wired. Were you always like that with like everything?
Yeah.
In terms of short-term memory, you have good long-term memory, but your short-term, not so much.
No, it's terrible. It's always been like that. And I mean, when I was a kid, without making this, like, you know, breaking out my violin, when I was a kid, it was a subject of critique. It's like, you know, how could you forget this? This just happened. Or like, how could you not be present? And, you know, it used to frustrate me a lot. But again, as I've gotten older and I've been more mindful and you self-correct, you think, okay, slow down. This is about to happen. These are where your pitfalls happen. So this is precisely the type of moment where you have to slow down and reassess what's going on.
Makes sense. All right.
So again, my point, you learn as you go. You become more mindful as you go, and whatever your personal pitfalls are, you can correct as you go forward with a little bit of mindfulness.
The goal is to learn while we grow. That is not always the case, and that is okay. There are always people around us doing stuff we don't necessarily like. C'est la vie.
C'est la vie. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this off the beaten track of Idi and I discussing life, or what grinds Idi's gears, or my views on mindfulness. Next pod will be a little bit more structured, but we just wanted to talk life real quick. So we hope you guys enjoyed it if you tuned in. And if anything else, we'll see you guys real soon on the next one.
See you next time, guys. Stay strong.